Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and some things might seem a little familiar, like my raspy voice, the same t-shirt, but it is still a different day than when I filmed my last childhood stories video, okay? It was yesterday, and then I literally took this shirt off, nicely put it on the chair, and then I put it back on again. Lower school was a really crazy, sad, and kind of oddly great time of my life. It is so condensed and packed with information because so many things went on. Off camera, I have my notes out to talk about everything. If you haven't seen my preschool one and you guys want to be in the know with my entire timeline, go check out my preschool video because I think that'll give you a better sense of knowing me. Not saying you guys want to know me, but if you're bored enough to get to know me, do it right. So go watch the preschool video. But I'm talking about now elementary school. But I went to a private school, and what I've noticed about private schools are they get to make their own rules. So first off, it was called lower school, and they're, what's neat about them too is they can choose to have specific days off. So I was always having school days off. And then if it snowed, I didn't have to make up the snow days. And with the curriculum, they got to choose it. So even though there was a standardized test in lower school, and that was all about it's the same thing as I think all the kids take. However, this was just to get your results of your school and compare them to other private schools in the nation. And I think they then, take the data, collectively meet in maybe some type of convention or conference or something, and then they work to improve on skills, etc. This had nothing to do with, will I pass the first grade or the second grade? I was not held accountable for the scores. We had a day that was a practice ERB test. I believe that's what it was called, the ERBs. And I don't think it was the entire day even. I think it was just a couple hours to make sure we knew how to fill it out, that we had the right materials, and to just be educated with what we're about to do. Kind of like when you sign a consent form to certain places, it's mandatory for them to pretty much read it verbatim to you still, even though you've already read it or you didn't read it and you tuned out and you're just nodding along and you're gonna sign it. So, I mean, we do that all the time, terms and conditions, come on. So lower school was actually a rough time for me. Don't worry guys, it got rougher. But, we haven't reached middle school yet where it's the worst time ever for girls, I feel like. But in lower school is hard because I started out with a teacher in first grade that I did not like. She is retired now. I don't think she was a mean person, but I think she needed to retire, and I think just over the years kind of exhausted her. So, she had a short fuse. We had a lot of troublemakers in our class, and those troublemakers always overpowered everything, that the teacher was yelling all the time. Now, very rarely was she yelling at me, but to have a teacher that constantly yelled made me scared. I did not feel like I had a relationship with her. And then also another time is we had these reading circles, and what was hard was I was actually a really good reader. When people, I hated it when we went around the room and the kids in the classes had to read, because all of them were so stinking slow, so bad. But me, I was actually a really fast reader. I wouldn't say me personally reading to myself in my head I was fast. I'm still slow with that. But when it came to reading out loud, I knew how to read quickly and effectively, and it was great. But the thing that was so tricky was, so I had to read something out loud, and of course I was nervous. I cared about my performance, because this was my time to shine, okay? Remember, I had to read a paragraph. I did it super well, but then she asked me questions about it. I mean, I didn't even know what I was reading because I cared so much about the performance factor of this. So then she says in front of all the kids, and I'm so embarrassed. This is something that I still remember to this day, of course. She says, "This book is a little too hard for you. Why don't you go down the hall into the other reading group?" And that reading group was people with dyslexia. I didn't have dyslexia. So I go there, and sometimes it's, you know, like, I was like, oh my God, because we would read and everybody read like even slower than the other class. I didn't belong in that. And I was so mad, I was so upset, and I was humiliated. And after a while though, I kind of enjoyed it because I really liked the teacher better. So I was okay. The teacher was, her name was Mrs. Dickens. She was much nicer. So at the same time, like, I didn't know, like, if I was, you know, if I was in middle school, I think I would know, like, I'm depriving myself of learning at the level I need to. But the teacher was so mean. I looked forward then to going out and hanging out with this teacher who was always there to lift me up. So that part was a little annoying because, you know, when you go to a private school, you kind of expect everything to be handy dandy. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, Green Hill was the best thing that ever happened to me, but you're still gonna run into things that just don't mesh well with you. So that was annoying. And then I remember we had a parent-teacher conference and she was raving about me. And my mom's like, do you ever tell her this? And the teacher was baffled, and my mom goes, my daughter thinks you don't like her at all. And apparently that ended up really hurting her feelings. She brought me in because with parent-teacher conferences, you had first alone time with parents and teachers, then you brought the student in for just like a full conference, just to always make them feel included and give them their, you know, I guess to treat the kid with respect, like it wasn't some harsh, scary meeting. And apparently, you know, she was putting her arms around me, giving me so much attention. And I think later on in the year, things changed where she knew she kind of needed to give a gentler touch to me. And I was also pretty sensitive. So if something was going wrong, I was so obedient that I would not speak up about it. So I'm glad my mom said something, even though it was like, oh, like, my mom, what? Like, if I would have known, like, in middle school, I would have been kind of embarrassed, I think. And then back to my notes. Like, I didn't want to forget anything, but like over time you start forgetting about things. So getting into like what my personality was like, I loved story time. And I remember we would go to the library and they would read to us a book. And even though I did enjoy the books, I did not know I had a language disorder. And so I really had a hard time taking in this, you know, this verbal oral communication. So I spent my time daydreaming, and I would daydream about so many things, like what I want to do in life, stories, what if I had superpowers. I loved daydreaming. So technically, like, I liked story time, but I wasn't really participating in it. I loved doing that. I loved creating stories. Sometimes I would write them out. I didn't really love reading, but there were certain books that I did. Like, I remember I read like all of the books of Ms. Pigglewiggle. And so if I really loved something, I would take the time to read it, but I was super proud. But my brother read like crazy. When I was starting out lower school, he was starting out middle school, and my brother also was genius level. So he was reading, he was like really into Greek mythology. So he was reading like the Odyssey, the Iliad, like all those books. And I know you're thinking like, oh, like I'm just, you know, everybody thinks their sibling's smart. Like my brother's been tested. Like he was so smart. He actually would read them. And like he's made poetry when he was like 7 years old that got published and won awards. So granted, I think there are awards like for kids to submit, but he's still like, he was making moves when he was in lower school. So then there was me, you know, and so kind of the joke was when, like still today, is that there would always be these commercials. I'm pointing to the TV. There would always be these commercials of like the Sylvan Learning Center. And they would show kids reading, and like the parent would see, and it'd be like having a Sylvan moment. So whenever, like when my brother read, it was like whatever, but when I read, it was a big deal, and my mom would be always like, I'm having a Sylvan moment. So there's that. And then one time there was a book that I did listen to during storytelling where we learned about smoke jumpers. And I was obsessed with becoming one. I don't know why, because it didn't make a lot of money. It wasn't on brand for me to do something that wasn't going to make a lot of money. You had to like work out, which I hated at the time, like doing work. Oh, like, and if you guys don't know what a smoke jumper is, they fight forest fires. So their job is, a lot of it is to actually like whack down the trees, because the trees are just added fuel to make a fire spread. So besides like holding a hose and helping the firefighters out with the water part, I'm also then in charge of kind of like containing the flames. And I don't have great lungs. Like, I don't know. I was so sad. My mom said it was like embarrassing how much I talk about it. But at the same time, I was in lower school. I think I get a pass. I just always had different kinds of obsession. Still had the obsession with animals. I wanted so many animals. At this time, like, I had 2 cats. And I think in lower school, yeah, no, I had 2 cats. And then I ended up getting birds. They were society finches. They were really nice. I started out with 3. One of them died within like the first couple months, but that might have been because I had 2 males and a female, and so like in nature, 2 males in like in a contained setting do not get along. So maybe that was the case. And then they started having babies galore. And the only thing that was hard about this is that I wasn't mature enough to take care of them. Like, I wasn't that great at like giving them food or water every day, cleaning their cage. Like, no, I did not do that. And they were super dirty, which if I had a specific room for them and I had like if we had somebody who was there to assist me with cleaning the cage, that might have been another thing. But literally it was like me handling like their poop. Well, no, it was my mom handling the poop. And it was kind of annoying because my mom didn't want them. It wasn't a good idea, but my dad wanted me to do that. So I was like, oh, okay. And then also in lower school, I started losing weight. I was always really hungry. And my mom knew like something's up. Like, this isn't right. And she would take me to the pediatrician. I remember this pediatrician was so well known that, you know, she was expensive. She was out of network, but she was worth it because of her great reviews. So took me, and she would always kind of laugh it off, but something wasn't right. And then besides, like, after losing weight over time, like throughout my time in lower school, like I was coughing, and I would not stop coughing at all. And I think I'll go more in depth about like the whole story of like a diagnosis, but it took to being age 10 to finally be diagnosed. And it wasn't even this pediatrician. This pediatrician was just the worst. And she just laughed off everything. I was starving. I would eat 3 servings of food that covered a plate this big. It was incredible. I outate my entire family. I used to dream of food. And sometimes when I say that, I mean, I remember the classic line is, I was telling Mom I had this dream, E.T. was in it, and then by the end of the dream, I ate E.T. And I was saying this like, oh, yeah, like, yeah, then I ate him, and he tasted like chicken, you know, and my mom's getting really concerned just because nobody can figure out why I'm anorexic looking. So finally, it took like another doctor, realized they needed to send me to a specialist, but by age 10, I am diagnosed. I'm not done talking about how bad this pediatrician is because, you know, before I was age 10, things were going on with my brother, and he ended up needing heart and brain surgery. Both of those things could have been prevented so easily, but this doctor she didn't hear it, listen for it. It was the weirdest thing, because then when it became an emergency issue where these surgeries were needed, everybody could hear the heart murmur. Everybody could, and she couldn't. And so it was weird because when my brother did pass away, in relation to these surgeries, even though they were successful, it took like many years down the line with other complications that were because of the surgeries, and the surgeries were needed because this doctor didn't pick anything up. So, like, I don't even know why she's, you know, in practice. And my mom was talking actually to another Green Home mom. It was my friend's mom. And she felt so bad, and she was saying like that she was really lucky to have this doctor that everybody praised and whatnot. And my mom was like, was it so-and-so? And she was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, that was my family doctor. I read the reviews too. That's why I paid extra. You're just lucky your kids weren't actually sick. Because this is like for a tell-all book. I'll tell you. But it's just, what do you call the worst student in medical school? A doctor. Like, as long as they pass, it doesn't matter if they barely pass, they're now a doctor. And I I really have a hard time with people who don't do their job. That just annoys the crap out of me. I mean, yeah. During my time of lower school, my family, I'd say, started falling apart. I wouldn't say it was the stress of having 2 sick kids in the house. The root of all the problems came from my father. You will never, like, again, like, I don't really, there's just too much to go into. And, you know, this is not just my story, this is my family story. But my dad is crazy narcissistic, and people throw the term narcissistic around all the time, especially to YouTubers, and it bothers me because I feel like my dad was clinically narcissistic. Like, therapists were diagnosing him as that. My family life started affecting how I acted as a person. I remember I would just kind of be mean to people. I was insecure just because there was so much instability at home. I feel like my mom would be so sad, like, hearing about this, but she knows, and like, it was nothing to do with her. And what didn't help was the entire time we thought my mom was in on the loop of what was going on, because, you know, it's like kids versus parents. Like, wasn't that the dynamic? But my mom was always working, and when things got out, my mom was like, like, are you, like, my mom is like such a good mom, such a mama bear, that like after that I was like, you're out of the house. Like, he was gone. So, but, you know, it reflected on how I treated others. And I think that's kind of why when, you know, I see, like, this wouldn't be I didn't all of a sudden become like a nicer person. Like, it took a while because I went through so many times of insecurity. But that's why I find a lot of people who are mean, especially on the internet, really insecure. And I think, like, there's been times lately where I've like seen people be mean to other people on the internet, and I've commented like, you're really insecure, which I know is like, why am I getting involved in this? But it's just, I guess I just wanted to make them feel foolish enough to just be quiet at this time, because they're just gonna regret going further with it. But when I see mean people on the internet, like, no matter what, like, even if they like pretend to not be, because I was once that person, I know, and I just feel bad for them. Like, they're so insecure. So if like you're doing that, like sending mean comments and stuff, I'm telling you, don't even bother, because my thought process is, I feel sorry for you. And I'm not saying that in like, yeah, I feel so sorry for you. Like, no, like, you must be going through something, but that doesn't give you the right to be mean to people. It really doesn't. And like those people who do like, oh, I'm saying something mean to you, but I mean no offense. Like, come on, like, you know, like, don't even start there. Gross. But I do want to end this on a good note, because I still managed to have a lot of fun in life. In lower school, I had crushes, like, starting in 1st grade on every boy. I remember I was talking to this girl, and I told her, I said, like, I have a crush on every boy in this school. And she didn't believe me, so she listed off every boy, and every boy I had a crush on. But it kind of makes sense, because I don't really have a physical type. So technically, no matter how I imagine this person was, like, I was able to fall in love with them. But I was too scared to talk to boys. Like, I remember I was talking to my friend Rachel, and I asked her, like, how do you do it? And she was so confused. And I said, how do you talk to boys? And she's like, I don't know. You just talk to them. And I was so frustrated, because I felt like there was like a secret answer to this. I don't know. I was lame. The first boy I liked, his name was Nick B. He was super popular. He dated so many girls in lower school, and I ended up graduating with him. And I feel like if anybody can look him up, or if anybody's from Green Hill, like, they know who I'm talking about, because every girl had liked him at one point, and he would date all these girls but never me, and I was so mad about that. But like, I was like a little straggly looking thing, so maybe I understand that. And I don't think we were ever in the same home room. If we were, I would have died, because like, he was so beautiful. And it was a little on and off with him, like my love for him, because then I also liked this boy named Griffin C. He ended up going to, I think, like St. Mark's or something after that. And then I liked this other boy named Nick H. Like, that's what he was called. It's kind of funny, because there was like there was another boy named Nick D. And all the girls thought he was so cute. And I mean, I thought he was cute, but he was never like my fantasy. at that time. Like, I felt like, I don't know, maybe it's because he was really tan and I was pale, so I appreciated the paleness on like a boy or something. I don't know what I was getting at, but maybe it was because every girl liked Nick D, so I wanted to be different, you know, like I like Nick H. Again, like, thought they were all cute. It was great when Nick H ended up leaving, but I think I had him through middle school somewhat. I'm trying to think. No, he might have left right before middle school. Some of these are a little bit blurred, but I'm trying to think of when I started using AIM. I think that was middle school, so I'll save that for middle school, because I ended up like talking to him over AIM, and we'll get to that. But I finished my crush up with Nick B in 4th grade. When I moved on to middle school, I was just not really having it because there were other cute boys like Brad to like. So yeah, and even in middle school, like, I don't remember really liking Nick D, except for the moment in high school. Oh my gosh, you guys have to subscribe now because there's so many more stories to share. One thing though that was super annoying was that I had told this girl, I don't know why, because she and I didn't get along. She didn't get along with a lot of people. She was like the school bully, but like if you're in a private school, the bully is really not like beating you up or anything like that, but she would pinch sometimes. She never pinched me, but she'd pinch other people. That was like what she was known for, but she was really sensitive and she would tattletale on you all the time. She would pick fights. She would just say mean shit, you know? And it was kind of funny because after we graduated from Green Hill and I saw her again, she acted like she was too cool for me. Are you kidding me? Like, we graduated both losers. Like, you're lucky I'm still talking to you because we had so many problems. But maybe she was also kind of embarrassed. I think too, a lot of people, they think when they graduate their world's gonna be perfect with a great job, and most of the people, even with a great education like a private school, they weren't. So maybe she was a little like insecure there. Insecurities, it always gets you. So but she knew that I liked him, so she wrote a love letter, signed it from me, and put it in his locker. I had no idea till halfway through the next day when these girls came up to me. They were like little gossipy people, and I graduated with some of them too. And I remember one of the girls, and she's like, "We read your note, ha!" Like, he was showing it around, and thank goodness it was lower school where people kind of forget, but that's like so embarrassing and so not cool. But then again, why was I telling the mean girl that I had a crush? So then I remember I even tweeted about this. My mom's like, wow, that's still so uncool for you to tweet about this. But yeah, I noticed that group of guys, because Nick B still stayed popular. I think it was with Nick B and like his little posse. And they were looking at my Instagram story, and I felt so cool, except for they could have just been reminiscing or laughing at me still. Anyway, I don't think they really were laughing at me because I don't think any of them really had a problem with me. Like, I might have been weird, but I don't think they had a problem with me. I heard something outside. And then one of those boys too, his name is Jason. I remember I like fell in love with him for a good week. And I'd follow him around on the playground, and I was like, I want to be your girl. And so then for like extended recess, the next day we hung out, and whatever he wanted, like, I'd get him like things to make a fort. And then he wanted to play soccer, and I was like, well, I don't want to play soccer. Can't we just continue to play together? And he said, I feel bad saying this, but I was kind of just using you. And then he goes off to play soccer. Then like the next year I was in homeroom with him or something, so I felt really embarrassed, weird. But wow, like, I was pretty assertive back then. Like, I knew what I wanted. Cute boys. Yes, that did hit my teeth pretty hard. Okay, my camera battery's been flashing for a while. It's gonna cut out on me, but I hope you guys enjoyed these stories. They're just kind of fun to like reminisce with, because the only person I have to do that usually with is Olivia, and she's not here right now. She's supposed to be here later though. Oh, she sent me 2 texts. Okay. So, okay. Thank you guys. No free promotions. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you can join the fam bam. Hit that like button. Leave a comment about your childhood. I want to hear now about your lower school / elementary school. And just because I love childhood stories. That's who I am. So, okay. Love you. Mean it. Bye.
baby.